Hey everybody, how's it going? Today we're going to be going over the universal installation kit for trailer brake controllers here on a 2011 Toyota Sienna. So this kit here is going to be a perfect option for all you Sienna owners there who have larger trailers with electric brakes and or an onboard battery. Because if we know a little bit about trailers that have electric brakes and or an onboard battery require a 7-way trailer connector. Now the most common trailer connector for this vehicle is a 4-way. There's actually some plug and play options. Now you will still need one of those to install this kit, but where this kit comes into play is this kit is actually going to adapt the 4-way. It's going to use all those circuits that are already on the vehicle and adapt that to the 7-way we need for our larger trailer. Now here's what that 7-way looks like. This is a pretty standard design here. We have a spring-loaded cap with a gasket in there to keep the water out, and there's all our pins inside. Now in addition to transferring all the basic lighting signals, the electric brake signal, and the battery charge line circuit, we're also going to have a reverse circuit in there should you have a trailer with reverse lights or it's a boat trailer with a lockout actuator. Now the great thing about this kit is it's not just a 7-way, we're still retaining our 4-way trailer connector as well, which you can see over here. So even if you have multiple trailers with that smaller 4-way and the larger 7-way, you don't need to worry about any wiring adapters. Everything is going to be built right into this trailer connector here. Now in regards to installation, I'm a little up in the air on this one. Nothing is particularly challenging on this install, but it is going to take you a considerable amount of time. I don't care how many of these you've done, it's going to take you a couple hours at a minimum depending on the tools you have at your disposal and obviously your experience level. But as long as you give your guys themselves an afternoon, I would say around 4 hours or so, again, depending on your experience level and tools, I definitely think most people can get this installed at home by themselves in their driveway. You don't need to lift and you really don't need any specialized tools aside from some basic wire crimping. But aside from that, it is pretty straightforward. It's just going to take you some time, and luckily we'll walk you through the entire installation now. Now to start off our installation today, we do need to have a 4-way already present on the vehicle, so a 4-way flat or a 4-pole flat trailer connector. So if you don't have one of those, we do have some plug and play options here at eTrailer. This particular vehicle is using a Takachi T1. So once you have that picked out, then you can proceed to the next step of hooking up the trailer connector. So this is what our trailer connector looks like installed on the vehicle currently. Now this vehicle has a draw-tight trailer hitch, and on the draw-tight trailer hitch there is a standoff tab there used to mount the trailer connector bracket with the included bracket that comes with your kit. Now if you guys don't have this standoff tab, that's totally fine. You can still mount this up, but you will need to purchase an additional adapter. So usually they're a no-drill mount that uses a band clamp. It wraps around the trailer hitch, and then it has the same standoff tab you would just mount your trailer connector bracket to. So if you don't already have one of those tabs, go ahead and pick one of those up and then mount your trailer connector to this with the provided hardware. It's just going to be simply 2 screws on top. Now once we get that bracket secure, it's this one here that I'm referring to, we're going to use our 4 screws and nuts to secure our trailer connector to that actual bracket. And then over here on this side, we're going to have our additional 4-way that's just going to simply slide into the grooves there for our additional 4 and 7-way connections. So when it comes to the wiring at the back, there's going to be a 4-way plug on here that's actually going to match up with the 4-way that you have from that separate wiring harness. So if the wiring harness doesn't already have the 4-way outside the vehicle, you will need to run it outside the vehicle, and there's actually a good grommet on either side towards the rear behind the bumper here that you could slip that connector through the floor and then route it out here to where our trailer connector is located. But once you do get it out here, you're just going to simply plug the 2 ends together with the back of the trailer connector. I like to use a zip tie to secure those 2 ends together and then tape them up so no water gets in there. Here's just a quick example of one of those grommets that we can run our trailer connector through in order to get it outside the vehicle. Now chances are you will have to cut the actual trailer connector portion off to be able to fit it through that grommet, but you'll just reattach the wires outside the vehicle here and then seal up your grommet. So now that we've got our 4-ways plugged in there, we're going to begin going over the rest of the wiring. So in this wiring harness here, you're going to get a thick black wire and a very thick blue wire. We're going to be attaching that to the duplex wire that comes in your kit with the gray sheathing. I went ahead and attached the black wire in that gray sheathing to the black wire coming from the back of the trailer connector. And then the blue wire coming from the back of the trailer connector, I went ahead and attached to the white wire in that sheathing. And then what I did with that sheathing is I ran it straight up. This is a factory hole in this underbelly skid panel. And I ran it over here to the driver's side above this panel, all the way over to here. And if we look over here, we can start to see the rest of that wire. Now we'll trace that a little bit later here in the video because that actually goes into the cab of the vehicle and up into the engine bay. But for right now, we're going to go over the rest of the wiring here at the 7-way. So now we should only have 2 wires left. We have this thick white wire and we have this yellow wire. So that yellow wire is only going to be used on trailers that have reverse lights or reverse lockout actuator commonly found on boat trailers. I would say, however, 9 times out of 10, we're not going to be utilizing that wire. So I'm just going to go ahead and tape it up some electrical tape to the rest of the wires. And then finally for our ground wire here is, all I did was run a self-tapping screw straight into the bottom of the body, which you can see there. So now at this point, we should have a large clump of wires there with electrical tape in. What I did is, it took some maneuvering, but there is this opening here in the factory skid panel we routed our wire above earlier. I pretty much just tucked all the trailer connectors and everything else up above that panel there just to provide it some protection from the elements. But now let's pick back up with that duplex wire that we showed you a little bit ago. So here's where our duplex wire came out onto the underbedded panel. You can kind of see it here. Now this is on the driver's side frame rail for reference, but basically we're just going to go up and over the coil springs that have it zip tied to the brake line there, up and over this rear crossmember section, over the gas tube filler neck, and then basically I have it secured here between the gas tank mounts and the body. I just have the wire wrapped over those to provide some security so it's not falling down. And again, once more, and at this point we're actually going to be routing it above this plastic panel here. So I just pretty much just fed the wires up there and over to this point. Now at this stage of our installation, we need to go ahead and remove this plastic panel. So there's going to be a couple bolts on the outside edge there, a couple on this side, and a few more in the front. You'll take a 10mm socket to drop this panel down. And the reason we need to do that is we have to find a grommet to access so we can run our white wire inside of the vehicle, because that's going to be going to our trailer brake controller. That is for our trailer brake output signal. And what we found is there's going to be a carbon canister under this plastic panel, and if you use a socket to remove the 3 bolts holding the carbon canister to the body of the vehicle, you can drop that down and that grommet is pretty much just going to be right in that area. At that point, you're going to take a razor knife to make a slit in that grommet and then run your white wire into the vehicle. We'll pick back up with that a little bit later, but at this point we're going to take the black wire and route this into the engine bay of the vehicle. So in order to get your black wire into the engine bay, I took a piece of airline tubing from the top there and I just fished it down through this little opening here. I tied my black wire to that, and then I pulled the airline tubing back into the engine bay, bringing our wire along with it. So now we're going to come inside the cab of the vehicle on the driver's side, and we're going to be removing 2 panels. This one here, you're just going to take a trim panel tool, pop that straight out, and this one here. So this one is going to be popped out as well, except you have a little thumb screw on the inside there you'll need to reach in and undo. But once you get these 2 panels up, you're going to lift open the carpet there, because your grommet is going to be located somewhere over here. Now we already cut the hole through the grommet and just loosely fished it up into the vehicle here, so you're going to grab the rest of that white wire and pull it all the way through until you get a nice tight tension on the wire. And then at this point you should have several extra feet of that. So you're going to go ahead and cut that white wire. Make sure you give yourselves enough to route up here to where your brake controller is located. You can see ours is here. So just kind of map out how much wire you need. And then the rest of that white wire, we're actually going to be tying it to that wire just with some zip ties to hold it inside the vehicle here. And then we're going to route it back down through here, through the grommet and the floorboard. Now the reason we need to do that is that's actually going to be the power wire for our brake controller. So we're going to take that white wire along with the black wire that we fished up into the engine bay earlier, and you're pretty much just going to follow that same path. And now let's head into the engine bay so we can show you where it comes up. So here you can see that black and white wire from earlier, and we just fished it as close to the firewall as we could, so we're avoiding any of the moving steering components or anything like that. And again, the black wire is for the battery charge line circuit. That one went to our 7-way, and this white wire is for power to our brake controller. So we're going to run this white wire along the side of the fender all the way over to this point here, and you can see we have our 2 circuit breakers mounted. Now in this kit you're going to get a 40 amp circuit breaker and a 30 amp circuit breaker. The 48 amp circuit breaker is for the battery charge line circuit. The 30 amp is for the brake controller. So let's start with our brake controller. We're going to take the white power wire that came inside the cab of the vehicle. We're going to attach that to our 30 amp circuit breaker on the silver post. You'll just unscrew that little screw there, or the nut there, and then you'll tighten it back down once you crimp on a ring terminal, one of the smaller ones with a 3/8 socket. Now the other side of this, you're going to take your other leftover white wire, attach another ring terminal, a smaller one, and then we're going to route this all the way over to the positive battery terminal. There's a nut there you'll remove. You'll just simply crimp on one of your larger ring terminals and secure it to the battery stud like that. Now if we come back to where these circuit breakers are located, we're going to show you the black one. It's pretty much the same thing again, except this is a 40 amp. So here's your black wire going into the circuit breaker, the silver post. And then we're going to have the bronze one going out to the battery. Same thing we just showed you for the other one. Once you get those both on there, go ahead and zip that nut back down. Now at this point, we're going to have 2 of the 4 wires we need to hook up our brake controller already inside the vehicle here. Now they are both white, so if you forget which one went into the engine bay for the battery and which one went back to the 7-way trailer connector for the brake output, you'll just simply put a test light on those. The one that goes in there to the battery is obviously going to have power. And if you want, you can go ahead and hook them up to the pigtail on your brake controller. So the blue one is the brake output coming from the brake controller. That's going to go to the white wire that goes to the back of the 7-way. And then the black wire coming from the brake controller, that's going to go to the white wire that we use to go into the engine bay. So now we only have 2 wires left. We're going to have a red wire on here and a white wire. The white wire is just for a ground. All we did is, again, we took some extra white wire because we had plenty of left over, and I just ran that to a factory ground that's actually behind this panel. So you'll use a 10mm socket to remove that screw there, and you'll just sneak your ring terminal with your wire behind that and then re-secure it. It's very simple. Now finally, we have the brake output, or we have the stoplight switch circuit of our brake controller, which is that red wire. So we're underneath the dash here, and if we follow our brake pedal arm up to this little metal bracket here, you're going to see we have a green connector. So this is where we're actually going to tie into our stoplight switch. You'll need to peel back some of the wire loom on this connector here to access that blue wire. That blue wire is for our stoplight switch circuit. All we did is we took one of the quick splice connectors that come in your kit, I placed it over that blue wire, and then I used some extra red wire you can see here, and I used it on the other end, and I just clamped the 2 together to make the connections, and then we're just going to run this wire to the red wire coming from your brake controller. Now you will need to purchase a brake controller in order to test everything out, so go ahead and pick one up from eTrailer if you don't already have one picked out. This is the Takansha Primus IQ trailer brake controller. It's an excellent option. But we're just going to go ahead and plug our pigtail to our brake controller into the brake controller once we've wired everything up, and then we should see power on our display. If we do, that's going to let us know that everything is working correctly as far as power to the controller, but we still need a way to test that the brakes are actually being sent back to the trailer connector, and we'll show you how to do that in a second. So we went ahead and plugged our trailer in. Now this is going to vary depending on what trailer brake controller you have. Most of them are going to give you some indication that you have a trailer connected. For most Takansha units, it's going to say N-C when it's not connected, and then you're just going to get a C when it is connected, which is what you can see here. Now if you want to test this even further, you can go ahead and hit the manual override on the brake controller and then have someone go back to the actual trailer brakes and listen to them hum. I can actually hear them hum now, so I know I'm having power sent to the trailer brakes. Now keep in mind, if you're using a proportional brake controller, you can't actually test everything with the pedal. And the reason you can't do that is proportional brake controllers sense inertia. So if you're not moving, you're not going to get any power when you press the pedal. That is a common troubleshooting question we get here at eTrailer. So I want to make sure that you guys don't freak yourselves out and think you did something wrong. It's just simply not going to work when the vehicle is sitting still, but the manual override is still a good test for this. Now with everything working, that's going to do it today for our look and installation of the Universal Trailer Brake Controller Installation Kit here on a 2011 Toyota Sienna.